Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our session on trading legally and safely during COVID-19. You're all very welcome this morning because businesses are absolutely crucial to us in South Staffs, and that's why we're putting these dedicated elements of presentations together to help businesses over the coming weeks and months, because we know that this is obviously a challenging time for businesses. We have a number of people here on the call this morning. We have Nicola Taylor from South Staffs Council. We've got Grant Mitchell from South Staffs Council and Jazmin Thomas from South Staffs Council. And we also, we're very lucky as well this morning to have Councillor Brian Edwards, the leader of South Staffordshire Council, here to give us a little bit of his experience in terms of business, but also to demonstrate how important businesses are to us as a council moving forward. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pass you over in a moment to Councillor Edwards to just say a few words, and then we'll go on to the main event, if you like, which will be Jazmin talking a little bit in terms of how you can trade legally and safely during COVID-19. What I'll do then at the end is I'll come back to me to have a very just quick recap of what we've talked about and how you can get further information from us as a council. So without further ado, like I say, very much welcome to you all this morning, and I'm going to pass you over to Councillor Brian Edwards, the leader of the council. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Annette. Just to say welcome to everyone. Often people think that councillors haven't got a clue about business, but I just thought it'd be worth telling you that we do have experience in business, and there are quite a few of our councillors who have that. I've, for instance, started off my career as became a chartered engineer in heavy engineering before joining my family business about 30 years ago in a small business. So I've had experience of both. So we do sometimes know what we're talking about. So, and I do welcome these sort of get-togethers to try and help businesses in South Staffordshire. So I hope you find it useful today, and I'll hand you back to is it Jazmin or Annette, one of the two. Anyway, enjoy the time with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jazmin Thomas from Environmental Health and Licensing team. I'm the Assistant Team Manager for the Food and Health and Safety team. And our primary role is dealing with food businesses, but we do health and safety with a lot of other types of businesses. And we also do infection control. So there's a bit of an understanding about coronavirus within the team as well. I thought I'd do it as a presentation. I've got a PowerPoint only because I think it's useful to see why we are where we are and to put things into context, and then hopefully that'll make it a little bit clearer. So bear with me, and I'm going to share my PowerPoint, which I hope works. So I hope you can all see that. Okay, so the first thing probably to think about is that COVID-19 is an unknown and very new. The government introduced the restriction regulations in end of March, really to stop the spread of COVID. And to do that, there were a couple of things that needed to be done. One was about social contact, and gatherings had to be controlled purely to protect people from being infected. And the emergency legislation that did this in a number of ways. And this is one example. It required certain premises to be closed. I'm going to just come out of that and share with you one other one other piece of information. And it's not that one. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this one. This is a list of the businesses and venues that the government required to be closed. On the left side are the type of businesses that need to be closed, and on the right side are the exemptions of those businesses, what they can do and can't do. So food businesses, as an example, have to be closed, but they can only do takeaways and deliveries. So that's in premises such as restaurants, public houses, cafes, and those type of businesses. All other retailers are required to close, and with the exception of certain businesses, so your food retailers, supermarkets, pharmacies, veterinary services, laundrettes, post offices, etc., were allowed to trade. Car showrooms were required to close, outdoor markets were required to close, all holiday accommodation was required to close, and various other libraries, places of worship that we all understand are currently closed. And then there's a list of those premises that absolutely have no other option but to close and can't do any other type of activity from those premises. If I just go up to retail, the exemption listed on the right hand side, but with retailers, they were up to in the first 6 weeks allowed to take online phone orders, and then for the business to do deliveries. So that was quite a change in what happened last week. So if I'm just going to go back into my presentation and hopefully it'll work. So that's where we were with what the government was asking us to be restricting on, and that was further reinforced by restrictions on people's movements. And everybody will remember the letter that the Prime Minister sent to all householders, outlining the 4 reasons that people could leave their homes for, and that was in the first 6 weeks of the legislation coming in and the lockdown. Last week, the government published its recovery strategy, and that was a roadmap to lift restrictions step by step. So everybody will know that the message is if you can still work from home where possible to do so, but those sectors that are allowed to open legally in that table that I just showed are the sectors that the government are encouraging to reopen. There were some businesses that could potentially have opened anyway, but many of them, and a good example is B&Q, decided that for the safety of their own staff, that they weren't going to open at that point in time. They have subsequently opened. So from the changes last week, the main changes has been that those retailers that previously couldn't open, which are now allowed to open, are the likes of the garden centres and plant nurseries and outdoor sports courts. Now in South Staffordshire, we've got lots of garden centres and lots of nurseries, and I know personally that in the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've had a lot of involvement with those. They were able to set up and take orders and do home deliveries, but they couldn't allow members of the public to come on site. And that was purely because at that point in time, members of the public weren't really allowed to go out to buy items that weren't necessarily part of the regulations. So one of the things that has been included now is something called click and collect. So retailers who are currently not allowed to open can now at least take orders and do deliveries, but also now can take orders and for customers to come to the premises to collect those goods. However, the customers are not allowed to enter the premises. So the other main restriction that's been lifted has been and added to the legislation is in relation to activities in connection with the purchase, sale, letting or rental of residential property. And it is just talking about residential properties. Now, how does that affect businesses? Well, that change has been linked to some guidance that has come out on moving home. And within that document, there is a section on tradespeople. And what it says is that people moving home is often the time when people want to undertake improvements in their homes, whether it's their new homes or preparing their old home for sale. And this work will involve things like fitting new kitchens, redecorating or other home improvement work. And what the guidance specifically says is this work is also important when people aren't moving home. Now, this is quite a big change from the prior to last week, because tradespeople were allowed to go to people's homes to do essential maintenance work. So if you had to have a plumber in to have a blockage removed or a broken washing machine to be installed, or you had a serious electrical issues that need to be dealt with, previously that was what was allowed for tradespeople to go into the home. What last week has enabled people to do is that tradespeople definition has extended, and what that has meant is that the homeware sector definition is now more likely to be extended. So homeware are the likes of Dunham, anyone selling items may even be considered as carpet fitters now, carpet shops, flooring businesses, where you can go and buy decorating materials, etc. So the definition now of the type of businesses that can potentially open has been extended and widened, as long as, and this is the important bit, as long as social distancing and control measures are put in place within those businesses and for tradespeople on how they manage their work when they go into somebody's house. This is quite a useful frequently asked questions document that people can link into, and what that does is part of the government strategy is about encouraging people back into work for those businesses that currently are allowed to work. And there is a set of guidelines that have been produced for the sectors that are currently allowed. And what it does say is that non-essential retail, restaurants, pubs, bars, gyms, leisure centres are still required to remain closed for the moment, and they will be subsequently reopened in a phased manner. So in terms of guidance, these are the guidance documents that came out last week that are useful for businesses to consider and look at. So I won't go into all of them, but I'll just pick the ones that relates to shops and branches. So if you have a business that's currently allowed to open, and you will see a lot of shops and businesses, supermarkets, putting some of these controls in place already. But this document is also very useful for those businesses who are going to be preparing to reopen when they're allowed to open. So these pieces of the guidance documents are quite useful to have a look at if you're in a business that currently isn't allowed to open. The principles in all of these documents are the same, and the key is the safety of the public, the customers that are coming to your premises. But equally, it's the safety of yourselves, your staff, and anybody else who comes into your business. So there may be contractors, there may be delivery drivers, and it's purely about how to stop the spread of the virus and how to stop anybody contracting that virus from your premises. And social distancing probably is not just about keeping 2 meters away or having 2 meters as a setup, but it's about other controls as well. And hand washing or hand cleaning hands or sanitizing hands is crucial. Keeping people separate, reducing contact with each other, how to do this safely is crucial. But equally important is good communication between staff, but also with your customers. And that could be verbal, it could be through signage, but it's about clear instructions for everybody so that everybody fully understands what your systems are and what is expected of everybody. And having a good, clear system in place will help the smooth running of your businesses as and when they're allowed to reopen. What I would say is that individual businesses and individual premises will establish controls which are most suited to them. And the guidance documents that are in place at the moment will help you to go through these to actually set your systems in place. If anybody has had a look at the recovery document that the government produced, we're currently in stage 2. And within stage 2, there are a number of steps, and we're currently at step 1. So the things that are currently allowed to be done are in step 1. Step 2 is potentially from the 1st of June. And that's the thought currently is that some other retailers, clothing shops, for instance, may be allowed to open after the 1st of June. Step 3 will be around the 4th of July. And the thought is that possibly a lot of the hospitality industry, hairdressers, cinemas, those type of premises may be allowed to open at that point. During this phase, the government are also saying that they are looking at, in between these periods, other businesses, other sectors may be allowed to open. And as and when that information comes through, we are then expecting that there will be guidance related to those sort of sectors that the government will provide. So I hope that's been helpful in sort of just highlighting where we are and some of the information that might be useful for businesses to look at. But if anybody did want to discuss anything or want clarification on something, because I would say that nothing is totally black and white in this scenario, and we are having to make risk assessments on each and individual assessment of different areas of sectors as and when we come across those. So but if anybody did want to discuss anything, then they're free to contact us and we are able to discuss that with any business. So I hope that's been useful and helpful. And if there's anybody wants to ask any questions. Nikki, is there anyone want any questions, or Annette, I'll pass it to you. I think your mic is on mute, Annette.
Thank you, Jazmin. That was very clear, and hopefully that allowed businesses to understand some of the details behind the regulations, and obviously the very clear message that in the event of there being any requirements to have those conversations with the environmental health team, then please do contact us. What we'll do is send out emails and obviously connections at the end, so that everybody who's been on the call has been able to contact and to see that information, web addresses and all the resources that Jazmin has set out this morning. I want to do a little bit of a plug really for the future events that we've got. If you've enjoyed this morning and you've liked what you've been able to share with us, this is very much one of the couple of first ones that we're doing from a South Staff's point of view. We are really keen to do more of this if businesses feel that it's worthwhile. We've taken soundings in terms of what are the topics that have been useful, or people that businesses have said they wanted to be involved in and hear about. And obviously, clearly, this was one that was very pertinent, particularly with the 1st of June date looming. And I know Jazmin and her team have been incredibly busy working that out. But as I say, there's been a number of people on the call who are available within the council to answer questions, not just from a trading safely, from an environmental health point of view, but in terms of that broader business support. And we're always very keen to hear more from you in relation to your business needs. So with that in mind, we've got the next 2 events for the next 2 Wednesdays are booked. I think probably if you've been able to log on to this one, you'll have the communication about those, but I'll just do another reminder. The first next one is relating to marketing. Again, something that we've all had to learn differently, or how to do things differently over the last couple of months. And then, so that's the one next week. And then the one the first week in June is relating to finance. If there's any particular other events, we will be continuing a rolling programme of these going forward. If there's anything particularly you think would be useful that we can source the right person and get expert advice in, we will happily do that. So please use us as a contact, and what we'll do is we'll put that and make that available to you if we can. So I think I'll leave you with that message, really. Thank you ever so much for joining in this morning. Thank you very much for everybody who's been part of making this happen. Particular thanks to Jazmin in terms of giving up her time this morning to be able to go through that presentation. That was really useful. And of course, a massive thanks to Councillor Edwards for being here to be able to express his support and the leadership support for businesses within the district. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next week and having those conversations with you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.